Hey, welcome to the Circus Boss Spotlight series. In our very first episode, I'm interviewing the fierce circus artist, Darielle Williams, as she shares advice for aspiring circus performers and gets honest about what she'd like to see from the circus community to address anti-Black racism and the lack of representation of Black circus artists. She's a multi-talented performer based in LA, and I'll let her tell you more about her impressive career.
I'm most known for being in Reve in Las Vegas and for going on tour with Beyonce and performing with Missy and JLo and the Little Mermaid live last year. An aerialist, an aerial instructor, a dancer, a pole dancer, sometimes fire dancer, a still walker, getting into acting now. I'm a swimmer. I don't know what else to do. There's so many avenues that you can have as a circus performer that you do not need to be a poor starving artist. You can join a big fancy company like Cirque du Soleil or Seven Fingers and, get the concert stage type of experience. You can go on cruises. You can do dinner theaters in Europe. You can be a part of a circus company in Australia. You can start your own company. You can do some of the things I did, which is like work commercially for music artists. Don't let anybody hold you back. I've had people like actively try to not get me jobs or not give me opportunities because they were afraid of what that might mean for them or just didn't want me to succeed for whatever reason. And it took me a while to crawl out from under people and just start doing my own thing. Don't let other people's opinion define who you are, just be who you want to be, and then everything else will fall into place.
You recently shared with me some personal stories about experience that you've had with clients that weren't interested in hiring you once they found out that you're Black. And number one, that's outrageous and horrible, but are there thoughts that you can share with fellow performers or casting directors or event planners to help stop this type of racist bias, or how to respond if we see it?
When that happened, I found out by mistake. Really, my friend left me in charge of her company, and she was also booking me on the job. So the client didn't realize that they were talking to the same person whose picture I had just sent. When they asked for a different girl, and I point blank asked them, is it because I'm Black? And they were like, well, we're sorry, it's just the client's preference, which is a familiar way that they like to phrase it, that it's a preference thing. I mean, if I had to wait around for someone to prefer a Black girl, I would only work for Black clients, so just waiting for that approval doesn't really lead to a lot of work. And that was like the first time that the blinders came off. I didn't realize that happened all the time. My friend told me it happened all the time. And also I just started seeing it all the time. Anytime someone would ask me for a job and I sent them pictures or video, we'd be in constant communication, and suddenly I'm ghosted after I send the material. And it came to a point where I just stopped. I stopped sending them stuff, and I would start with, just so you know, I'm Black, so decide on that first. Sometimes the client wouldn't know I'm Black, and a company would hire me to go on an event, and I'd be so excited, and I'd show up, and you can visibly see the disappointment in the client's face that I was the girl that came. So there's only so much you can do about unconscious bias. I told this to a different person, and she said for her company that she actively started hiring Black performers after hearing my story. She was so appalled by this. She said no one is going to tell her what color her performers are going to be. And I think if a client really had a problem with it, you can just tell them this is the best person for the job. End of story.
Now that you've brought this to my attention, I want to be more aware of it and more supportive. So if I do see this happening, or as a performer, if you're part of a cast and you see things like this happening, how do we call it out? How do we bring it to other people's attention?
Yeah, it would be very difficult once you're already on a job to bring that to the client's attention without causing some kind of rift, But, I would put it on the on the director, whoever's the director of the company, to be bold enough to have that conversation with the clients that, you know, audiences can handle more than one race, you know, but whether you think so or not, like they're not as soft as you think they are. It's not that crazy. It's 2020, soon to be 2021. Like, they'll be fine.
You had mentioned that, like, going to auditions in LA, right? That they were looking to cast a solo artist for, like, say, a commercial, that if they chose you, then that would be a bold choice, like, because it's a Black aerialist. But, like, yeah, can you just share some more about that experience and then those thoughts that you have around that as well?
It's sad, but that's genuinely how I feel when I walk into an audition. There's a part of me that's like, they're not going to pick me. They only want one girl. Why would they choose a Black girl for this? You know, if they wanted like 5 girls, maybe I could be one of them. But for a solo role, like, that means that client is going to have to use me as the face of their product for the commercial, or the face of the poster for the show that has an aerialist in it, or, you know, and I honestly think that people in casting think about things like that and go, no. Hopefully some of the talks that we've been having earlier this year with the whole revamp of the Black Lives Matter movement will make some hearts and minds change, because I don't think people realize how difficult it is for Black people to be represented in lead roles.
Well, that's something that I wanted to ask your opinion about, actually, because we're working on a value statement exercise to help circus performers and circus businesses create a value statement, but a statement that also includes commitments to put those values into action. I recently just saw ABT had an updated value statement that included actions that they're going to take to create that diversity and representation. So I'm curious from you, like, what are types of commitments that you'd like to see from the circus community in terms of addressing anti-Black racism or lack of representation of Black circus artists?
Yeah, in terms of anti-Black racism and representation of Black artists and companies, I think it's up to companies to actively seek out and recruit Black performers. When you audition, white is typically the default, and recognizing that, you know, it has to be like a conscious decision to say, I want more people of color. I want, you know, 5%, 10%, 20%, come up with a number or something, because if you don't actually try to do it, it won't happen. You know what I mean? It's just very easy to go with what you know and with what you're familiar with. We're humans, that's what we do. And then once that is done, I think that more companies really need more people of color in their boards, from the top, you know, who's a part of running your company. Even if it's a small company and it's only owned by 1 or 2 people, who is your right-hand person? There must be somebody working right underneath you who takes charge of all the things, or somebody that you consult when you're coming up with themes and choreography and show ideas and things like that. And, you know, Black people and people of color need to be in more of these decision-making positions, because it not only helps you cast more people of color, but it also helps you tell stories from different perspectives that you may not have had before. It just helps the people of color who are hired feel like they have someone from the top who has their back. Those artists of color get to tell their stories in a way that isn't insulting to a whole group of people, you know? So there's so many benefits to having people of color, not just in your cast, but also at the top.
And you touched on another one I've been thinking about for years as a queer woman married to another woman. So many roles in circus are hetero and binary, and the man seduces the woman and they fall in love. There's a show in Vegas that I went to. There was one moment where 2 women kissed. It was like the Devil's Inferno, like red lights, and it was this like evil moment. I was like, well, why isn't that the beautiful love too, right? And so with the racial reckoning of 2020, I've really been thinking about that as well, of like, well, what about the skin color of the artist and what roles are they playing? And obviously we see in Hollywood, they're trying to grapple with this and make changes. And I really look forward to seeing that in the circus world.
So what you're talking about is how stories are told or how people are represented. And, you know, there've been a lot of conversations about that this year as well. And I just feel like, you know, it's just time for circus to update and modernize a little bit. You know, I think the whole man, woman, and love thing is just very traditional, and people don't want to offend anybody or anything like that. But the more that this becomes a mainstay, the less of a big deal it would be. Like, the less offensive it would be to anyone. You know what I mean? If people just realize that love is love, skin is skin, you know, they would just, and children grew up just seeing, you know, all of the beauty and diversity, no one would be like shocked. Suddenly when a Black person had a lead role or a girl was kissing a girl, like that would just be normal and art and a reflection of actual life, because this is what actual life looks like.
Absolutely. Let's do it. And one thing I like to think of too is, as artists and as creators, if we don't like what we're seeing in the world, let's use the stage or the screen as a place to show and reflect what we'd like to see more of in the world.
Exactly.
So where can we find you online, Dari?
My website, divadari.com, or my Instagram, divadari. Yeah, those are my main things.
You have a show coming up this weekend, right?
Yeah, I basically started teaching out of my backyard during the pandemic, and just for fun, we wanted to throw an online show because what else are we doing right now? And I'm really excited. It's a small show. It's just 6 soloists, all aerial, 6 aerial solos, shot in my backyard with really great videographers and photographers. We went all out on that. And lighting, like we did the whole thing just to make it more real for ourselves. It's on December 5th through 7th, because it's basically a link that you would buy and you can watch it for 48 hours straight and then it's gone. Yeah, look out for that, December 5th to the 7th, and you can get those tickets in the bio of my Instagram, because it's kind of not that easy to remember. But also I'm sure Eiley would link it down for you guys.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing all of your students, and the fact that you can do an outdoor performance in November is awesome. So that's great. In LA, you can do outdoor performing a little bit longer than other places, right?
So true. Well, we think it's cold, but it's really just 60s.
Awesome. Well, before we go, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience?
Well, do they know that I started with you? Let the people know that I started with you and now I'm being interviewed by you for my student showcase. Full circle.
Really, really fun fact. I didn't realize this. The first 2 interviews that we're doing are my 2 acro stilt partners. So you and I created the duo together doing acro stilts. And then our second interview is
Nice.
Lauren Kell was my acro stilt partner when I moved to Seattle. Complete coincidence. But yes, Dari, I think I can throw some fun photos of you from Animate Objects Days in here as well.
Perfect. Yes.
I love it. It's been such a joy to watch your career from our days way back in Miami. We look forward to seeing your show and seeing more from Dari in your fabulous career.
Thank you.
Is anti-racism and representation of Black circus artists important to you? Please share this video with your communities and comment below on ways that you are already actively making changes. Thanks for tuning in today, and stay tuned for more insightful interviews in our Circus Boss Spotlight series.
Bye.